Transmitter device activated. Coordinates set for Earth 2.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Earth 2 podcast, your weekly exploration of the DC Comics multiverse and the legacy of their Golden Age characters through the Silver and the Bronze Ages of comics. I'm Peter Watson.
And I'm David Steele. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. It's all about the Golden Age legacy this week, to an extent. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, pretty much. And it's also the final DC Comics 100-page issue that we're going to be reading from. So let's have a moment of reflection on that.
That's enough.
We have reached the end of the era of the 100-pagers. Listeners, isn't that exciting? I think it's exciting. And which 100-pager are we finishing with? Listeners, I hear you cry. Well, listeners, I cry in return. We are finishing with issue 116, published on the 5th of December, 1974. Peter is going to tell you about the cover.
For the final time, we have DC 100 pages for only 60 cents at the top. Here come TV Super Friends, the Justice League of America, says the normal Shield banner at the top.
And this is actually, I suppose, a convenient point for us to mention once again, if we haven't already, that we didn't get the Super Friends cartoon in the UK.
We did not, no.
So all your, meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice jokes and such like, and stuff about Black Vulcan, right over our heads.
Yes.
We didn't get it, Guy. We got the New Adventures of Batman. We got the Filmation Tarzan series. We got Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends and the Hulk series that was run about that time. We got tons of like Filmation and Ruby Spears stuff.
Galaxy Trio.
Yep, Galaxy Trio.
Stuff like that. Space Sentinels.
Yep, but we didn't get the Super Friends. So there you go. Think on that, American listeners. And if you want to send us them all on region-free DVD, that'd be lovely. Anyway.
There's a splash here saying 3 full-length novels. Now, as has been the tradition, I'm going to tell you about the stories that we're not covering before I tell you about the main story that we are covering. But what? What do you mean, Watson, you're not covering? Because I think you'll find we already have covered them.
I know, it's amazing.
First one is Challenge of the Untouchable Aliens from JLA, what was it, 15, I think?
14 or 15, something like that.
That we covered way back early in the podcast.
I think it might have been our very first attempt at remote recording.
May have been.
I think it was before we figured out that we could just record our own audio sort of independently of each other. What we did, I think in that case, was Pete basically had a microphone sort of set up and was recording the output of my call out of the speaker of his phone, and you can tell. Because we did it the same way for the Starman of the Silver Age, and that sounded a lot better. So yes, it was a very early one that we did, Challenge of the Untouchable Aliens. Was that the one that I really liked and you didn't?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, because I remember thinking it could have been a really good plot for a movie because all the heroes got lots of stuff to do, and if I don't stop talking about it, we'll be here all day. So what's next on this cover?
The second one is Starman and Black Canary Battle the Mists.
Of course.
Yes, that was, of course, Mastermind of Menaces.
From Brave and Bold 61, if memory serves. If we had infinite time and resources, we would re-record that now, getting Ross to do Starman's voice and getting Kelly to do Canary's voice.
Could do, yeah.
But since none of the aforementioned us or them have infinite time and resources, that ain't going to happen. What's interesting is I do have a couple of foreign reprints of that B&B that I didn't have at the time when we covered that story, so I'll probably drop them on the socials this week, listeners. Watch out for that.
Exciting.
I know.
Exciting. But that's the full-length ones, but there's also Extra. The first appearance of Johnny Peril in Just a Story. Plus, JLA Supervillain Quiz. What do you know about the Joker and other villains?
We might have to take that quiz later in the episode. Let's see how we both feel about that
we
when
may
we got
do.
to the
We
end.
may do. But the main story that we're covering today, a new adventure featuring the amazing Matter Master. Look what he's done to the world's greatest superheroes. And we have possibly my favourite Hawkman villain, Matter Master, who is a guy in a kind of green leotard with a red cape with a kind of pointy wizard's hat, almost cowl hat thing.
Pointy wizard hat sort of works for me.
With kind of astrological symbols, stars and moons and things like that on it in white. He also has this great red facial hair. He's got like Van Dyke, he's got like beard sort of pointing out. It's hilarious. And he has, of course, a wand, not a magic wand, but a Mentachem wand.
I am about to reveal my ignorance. I didn't know he was a Hawkman. Is he an long-established Hawkman?
Yes.
I don't think I'd ever seen him before this story.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not that big on Hawkman, though.
Why are you not big on Hawkman? He's the best of the heroes.
I've got, like, I mean, I've got like most of the 80s and 90s stuff, but the Silver Age stuff, I don't know, I've never just dug into it. I think the visual certainly appealed to me, but I've never really done a deep dive on Hawkman, I'm afraid to say.
I love the Silver Bronze Age Hawkman because he is such a mess. They literally do not know what to do with him.
Right.
Is he a policeman from another planet? Is he this scientist? Is he a museum curator? They kind of try and put all of it together, and all of it together doesn't work. And it's fascinating.
Interesting.
And I really, really like it because it is such a mess.
Yeah, I mean, given this is a Hawkman legacy episode, it's fair to have this conversation, I think, at the start. I mean, we should probably mention what an absolute further mess they made of him in the 90s when, like...
Yeah.
And in the wake of the crisis, and this is getting way ahead of things, they kind of tried to deal with the fact that there'd obviously been a Golden Age and a Silver Age Hawkman. They just sort of said there hadn't been a Silver Age Hawkman, there was a Golden Age Hawkman all the time.
Yes.
Despite the fact that there had been stories in, I think, Justice League at least, and an ongoing series where it had been clearly the Silver Age Hawkman, Carter Hawley with his dark hair and all that. And then they published the Hawkworld series.
Yes, Prestige format series, yeah.
Which they seemed to sort of say was a reboot for him, but if they'd said it was set 10 years in the past, it would have saved a whole lot of problems.
Yeah, and most of the Prestige format series that were being published at that time were kind of alternate histories, Elseworlds before they were called Elseworlds, really. Right. So it could easily have been an out-of-continuity story, and they could have just kept him as was. Yeah,
I mean, it's a similar thing to Killing Joke, which was, only recently, I say recently, I mean in the David and Peter sense of in the last few years, which means any point between now and 2003, that, Alan Moore and Brian Bolland did not intend for that to be in continuity.
So, well, Alan Moore said that the Joker wasn't killed at the end.
No, but it's more to do with the fact that Babs was not supposed to get shot in the stomach. But that was then folded into to continuity. But the original intent was, no, this is just a story, just a story featuring Johnny Pell. But the fact that it was folded in, and it's interesting that kind of, I guess because it was pretty popular and well received, I suppose it's similar with Hawkman, but I mean, it got so messy with Hawkman. I remember there was an aspect of Zero Hour that celebrating its 30th anniversary as we speak, which kind of dealt with that and just seemed to make it worse as well. Yeah. It got to the point where they couldn't really do anything with him, and he was away for a good few years before they brought him back in about, issue 25, the JSA, in 2001. He'd been gone for years by that point. So he's kind of fallen very much into this sort of, Hawkman's the guy that gets reincarnated, and they've just done something very interesting with that, I think, in the latest issue of Justice Society. Because, listeners, they actually got another issue of it published, can you believe it? Did a very interesting thing in that, where basically was it Gentleman Ghost killed him, and he came back straight away. He reincarnated straight away, but he had all the trauma to deal with, and it was very. I think that's quite interesting. But it's just I'd love Sam Beckett to quantum leap into a DC executive in the past at some point and nip all this unnecessary Hawkman confusion in the bud. Well,
Robert Venditti's recent series, I say recent again, it was about 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
The first few issues of that were drawn by Brian Hitch, incredible artwork, but that was a fantastic story because basically it said he is making up for the fact that in his original incarnation he was this mass murderer. Right. And the idea is he's now cursed to reincarnate and live pretty much forever until he saves as many lives as he took.
Ah, interesting.
And he also, his reincarnations are now tweaked, so he's reincarnated through time and space, so he could be on Ancient Krypton.
So it is a bit like Quantum Leap, slightly.
Yeah, it is,
and take your glasses
could
off.
Be in Ancient Krypton, then it could be in 1920s New York, and then then it could be, it's
that is interesting.
So it's a fantastic run that no one really read.
I remember you enthusing about it at the time, and obviously I picked up the ones at the JSA in the cover, but did I read them? Maybe Peter has convinced me to try and track down some more.
You should.
I probably will. Right, we've rambled to an extent that we just do not do on this podcast. Let's get back to the cover description. The Matter Master, who you've just ably described, is waving his wand.
His Mentachem wand, and he's pointing it at Elongated Man, Aquaman, Flash, Green Arrow, and Batman. But he's transformed them all so that Elongated Man has the head of a snake, Aquaman's got the head of a fish, Flash has got the head of a deer, Green Arrow seems to have some kind of fly-like head, although it's a bit more round. It's horrible. And Batman has the face of a big rat or mouse. Gasp.
Bat-rat. Ratsman. Yep. It's a great cover. We actually posted this cover on the socials ages ago, listeners, when we did Challenge of the Untouchable Aliens, because, we were still very, very early on and hadn't completed our Matter Master list of every story we were going to do. And it was like, wait a minute, we should do this one because it is a Hawkman Legacy aspect. And you're probably waiting for us to tell you what that Hawkman Legacy aspect is, and the best way to do that is to jump into the story properly. We have a contents page at the start, which has been repurposed from one of the Just League of America 80-page giants, But I'm not going to go through and look for it because I already had to do that a minute ago to go and look for the letters page for Superman Family for last week's episode. So we don't want to be here all night. We kick off with a Just League of America logo and a roll call scroll that reads
Green Arrow,
Batman,
Elongated Man,
Aquaman,
Flash,
and some captioning further sets the scene.
Several thousand miles above the Earth, NASA's Project Skylab completes another orbit in its 12th record-breaking week in outer space. And once again, the trio of Skylab astronauts gazes spaceward at another satellite in a fixed orbit 22,300 miles high.
Yeah, this is amazing as a splash panel. We see Skylab, and of course the other satellite is, well, one of the onboard Skylab astronauts is about to tell us what that other satellite is.
I'd give up half my space pay to switch places with one of those Justice Leaguers and get an inside look at their headquarters.
You know, Ed, that's not a bad thought.
Yeah, especially if the exchange member turned out to be a bird lady named Black Canary.
Suddenly, one of the scientists who we don't see remarks,
Look, a shimmering beam shooting up into the JLA satellite.
God, I mean, one of the Leaguers has just been transported aboard. And indeed, that's what we see. The JLA satellite is a nice golden aura about it at the best of times, but we see this golden beam of energy flying up from Earth to strike it, and this takes us to another caption.
And it also means the world's greatest superheroes are about to embark on a bizarre adventure that will introduce them to the strangest ally they've ever had. The Kid Who Won Hawkman's Wings.
And we're told the credits for this issue.
Story, Carrie Bates. Art, Dick Dillon and Dick Giordano. Editing, Julius Schwartz. The Magnificent Dicks again. Fantastic.
It's the Carrie Bates podcast right now, isn't it?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Very Carrie or Gary Bates heavy.
Yes, it's clearly Carrie this time, I think.
Yes.
Anyway, or is it Carrie? Listeners, write in and let us know. Right, top of page 2 then.
On board the Space Sanctuary, one disgruntled superhero. One disgruntled wisecracking superhero. One disgruntled wisecracking shaft-slinging superhero, better known as the Green Arrow.
And from inside the JLA satellite, we hear a familiar grumpy voice.
Just my blasted luck. Soups gets called away in an emergency in the bottle city of Kandor, and I'm the guy in standby call who gets stuck with his shift. This is Justice? Passing up a date with a pretty bird to babysit with a slew of detection banks and monitor screens? I'll go crackers up here if I don't find something to do.
And we see Green Arrow hoisting onto his shoulder a large bag which is obviously full of envelopes and postcards.
Our JLA mail's been stacking up. Might as well sift through these letters to pass away the time.
And we see him cross-legged doing just that.
Some real winners out there. One clown asked for a complete set of Justice League baby pictures. There's a chick who wants each member to send her his favourite recipe, and a kid who's invited the Leaguers to his hometown. Ah, now here's the kind of letter that really gets to me.
The first panel of page 3 is a shot of a handwritten letter. All of his thoughts continue.
The kid must have sent the letter back when Hawkman was still an active member.
And an asterisk takes us to a caption which reads,
As revealed in JLA 109, Hawkman resigned from the Justice League to return to his native planet, Thanagar.
And we can see some of the letter that Green Arrow is reading, and it goes like this. And although my own wings aren't as big as yours, Hawkman, I fly pretty good. I'm plenty big and strong for my age too. You would have been proud of me last night if you'd seen me net a gang of crooks. Back to Ollie's thoughts as he reads.
Sounds like he plays make-believe Hawkman in Midway City. In the letter he asks his idol if he could meet him, but since Hawkey's trillions of miles away in Thanagar, I'll look him up instead, give him the thrill of his life. It's the least I can do for giving old Featherface such a hard time in our missions together. Next night in Midway City,
and we see Green Arrow swinging in on a line to land on a ledge of a very tall building, and he's thinking...
The name and address in the letter was Charlie Parker, care of Midway Orphanage. That shouldn't be too hard to pin down.
Next panel we see that Green Arrow's looking down, and we can see 3 very dodgy-looking characters running along, carrying literal money bags. They're all got faces made up to look like clowns, clown makeup, and one of them's wearing a large orange top hat and a big spotted bow tie and overlarge coat, and another one who looks very much like the Joker. He's wearing a green coat and purple trousers. He's got a cigar in his gob. There's another chap. There's a touch to the Marx Brothers to them as well.
Yes, definitely.
There's another one with a sort of yellow flower pot hat, and he's got a purple wig and a blue sort of butterfly design in his face. He's wearing a red jacket and a yellow shirt. And Green Arrow looks down at all of these and he sees them and he thinks,
Whoa, looks like I've swung across a getaway. Judging from their zany masks, this looks like a comedy caper. Now that GA is here, the laugh will be in them.
And he swings in his line down to land another rooftop to get a better look at them.
But before the ace archer can string an arrow...
Yes, and it looks as though he's about to unleash the boxing glove arrow when he's interrupted. He starts and thinks,
I'm being upstaged. and from this distance it looks like Hawkman, almost.
And we can see that, yeah, indeed, it does look like Hawkman. There's the familiar green leggings and the familiar wide wings, the red boots, the red shorts, the yellow harness attaching the wings to the body. But it doesn't look like a full-grown adult. It looks like a slightly leaner, younger form that's flying down above the three clown bad guys. The first one in the red jacket yells,
"Hey!"
And the Joker-like one in the green and purple says, "Who's lowering a boom on us?" And we see that this new Hawkman-type figure is dropping a net over them. Panel 3, he's got them all swept up in the net, and he starts lifting them up into the air as Green Arrow looks on and thinks,
Winghead himself couldn't have done a smoother job bagging that trio.
And as this figure flies off, bearing the clowns underneath him, Green Arrow continues to think.
Bet you he's going to dump him off at Police HQ.
He drops down to street level, final panel of page 4, thinking,
Spotted the station a block up the street. I want to be there to shake that fella's hand. Or wing.
A few moments later...
Yeah, we see a couple of uniformed police officers standing outside the police station with the three clown bad guys all tied up in their net. As I say, 2 uniformed cops, and there's a older man with white hair and a moustache and a civvy suit making his way out of the building, as the first uniformed cop says.
This is how we found him, Commissioner Emmett.
Just like the others, netted with their loot and ready for booking. And as usual, there were no eyewitnesses.
We got lucky this time, sir. A taxi driver caught a glimpse of a winged man flying away over the rooftops.
That fits my theory about these mysterious crime-fighting assists we've been getting lately. And he reaches down here, and we see him picking up... Well, he tells us what he picks up in a second. Ah, yes. Here's the trademark that's always left behind with each delivery of crooks. A feather. Which leads me to a definitive conclusion. We should point out the feather's very large and golden in colour. Hawkman did not go back to Thanagar after all. Instead, he's still in Midway City, operating undercover for some reason, making sure no one gets a clear look at him, not even the criminals he captures. We see in the next panel that Green Arrow is standing round the corner behind another building listening in as Commissioner Emmett continues. Until Hawkman lets us in on the reason he's keeping out of sight, the least we can do is take care of our jobs. Book them, Sergeant. And as he looks on, Green Arrow thinks.
So the Commissioner's convinced Hawkman is still working Midway City just like the old days. Man, does he have a wrong number.
Are we at the top of page 6 now? A caption.
As the Ace Archer leaves the police station vicinity...
Yep, see Green Arrow walking along in plain sight, thinking...
No way I'll ever track down this new winged wonder from the ground. It's signs like this that make me wish I was an airborne superhero type.
And then he notices in the distance what looks like a glowing ball hurtling through the sky, and he thinks...
What's that coming over the horizon? I thought I'd seen it all. A flying water ball.
And then what we also see very quickly and very concisely is that this flying water ball is flying into the path of the chap wearing the Hawkman-style costume that we saw earlier. All these thoughts?
Hey, it found my winged friend coming out of a cloud cover.
For a moment, the incredible liquid sphere hovers motionless with its flailing prey trapped inside. And then a chilling voice fills the sky.
This is a great layout on this page, listeners, I really must say. Dominated by the central image, this bubble, with the junior Hawkman figure trapped inside it. And indeed, as Pete says, a chilling voice fills the sky saying, "Attention, Hawkman! This is your arch foe, the Matter Master. I don't expect this elementary trap will contain you for long, but even as you escape, be warned that war has broken out between us. A war you cannot possibly win." And what's interesting here is we get a shot of this person in the Hawkman-style uniform, and it's that interesting way where it's been drawn that the mask, instead of being fully down and covering his face, it's almost like it's a hat tipped on the back of his head, casting a shadow over his face. So while his nose and mouth are clear, we only see his eyes hooded inside the mouth of the hawk, if you like. Very, very interesting, very effective, I think. And we can see that this young hawk figure is sort of struggling to breathe.
And as the transmitted voice fades out...
Yep, Green Arrow drawing an arrow and firing it quickly is thinking...
Like the man said, that water trap wouldn't hold Hawkman for long, but this feathered phony is going to drown any second.
2 specialized shafts slice through the sky into the water ball, guided by an infallible aim.
Tremendous sequence of shots as 2 arrows collide with the bubble, and it looks as though they both burst it and cause it to evaporate at the same time. They also have clamps, which latch onto the figure in the Hawkman uniform and lower him to the ground. Amazing. It is so cool that Ollie has an arrow for every occasion.
2 arrows in this case.
And a caption reads...
And then...
And we see the young figure in the Hawkman uniform sat in a nice puddle, which obviously shows he got a good soaking, looking up at Green Arrow and saying, "Green Arrow? You're the one who saved me?"
Yeah, me. and the latest artificial respiration techniques. You swallowed enough water to float a Volkswagen, friend.
And as the young man pushes his mask back further and rubs at his eyes, Green Arrow continues.
But now that you're still alive, you've got a big problem, namely staying that way, which ain't going to be easy with the Matter Master out to clip your wings. So I figured I'd better SOS us a little help.
And with that, Green Arrow gestures with his thumb, and we see some very familiar figures standing nearby. This prompts the kid to say, "Oh, wow! 4 more Justice Leaguers in person!" And the caption at the top of page 8, to hold you in suspense for a little bit, listeners, tells us who those 4 other superheroes are.
Batman, the Elongated Man, Aquaman, the Flash stand alongside the Ace Archer now, all of them staring at the strange figure before their eyes, all of them plagued by the same questions.
Yep, as the lad in the Hawkman costume starts to get to his feet, he says, "Gosh, you fellas really think all this protection is necessary?"
Take our word for it, Matter Master is one mean dude,
says Green Arrow, and Batman then says,
"The Arrow filled us in on what he knows about you, which isn't much. How about filling in some gaps?"
And at this point, Elongated Man's nose wobbles as he says, "As a starter, who are you?" Aquaman leans in and says,
"Those wings, that hood you wear. They part of a costume or for real?"
And the Flash looks thoughtful as he contributes, "And how come you've got the Midway City police and underwear believing you're Hawkman?" And at this the boy stands up and seems to pull his wings in towards her as he says, "Okay, the least I owe you guys is a show and tell session. When I'm like this, I call myself Golden Eagle. But the rest of the time, and there's a sudden flash, and the Hawkman-style uniform vanishes, and we see an older teenage boy with very long 70s-style brown hair, wearing a green shirt and blue jeans with turn-ups and brown boots, and this prompts Aquaman to say,
"By Neptune's trident!"
Elongated Man says, "He's just a kid." And this prompts the Flash to say, "He worked that costume change faster than my Flash change." Get close up of the boy in the next panel as he says, "The rest of the time, I'm Charlie Parker, age 16, parents unknown, address." See Batman looking thoughtful as Green Arrow punches his own forehead and says,
"Midway Orphanage, right?"
And he holds up the letter that he was reading from earlier on, the final panel of page 8, addressing the kid and says,
"You're the Charlie Parker who sent the Justice League this letter. The way you wrote about your wing flying and your run-ins with crooks, I figured you were just a small fry with a big imagination. But you're 100% real."
In close up, Charlie replies, "Not quite, Green Arrow, only 50% real. Months ago, when I wrote that letter, I was a dreamy-eyed kid, play acting in a homemade bird costume, until the day the change hit me." He narrates the next couple of panels, which are rippled in flashback style. "I was jumping down some steps, pretending to fly, and we see him, indeed, wearing his homemade Hawkman costume. He's just in his jeans and his normal shirt, but he has this sort of set of wings. He's grasping them with his hands, they're strapped across his chest. He's got a homemade Hawkman mask. We can see a sign behind him that reads Midway City Orphanage. So he's jumping off these steps, and suddenly he's being struck by a beam of green energy. And Charlie is thinking, oh, being zapped by something. Feel tingly all over." He narrates the next panel. "The next startling moment found me soaring high into the sky, as if I'd been doing it all my life." And we see that he's now wearing the Hawkman-style uniform that we'd seen him in earlier in the story. "Holy cow," he thinks. "My imitation wings, my hood, they're not a costume anymore. They're real, alive, part of me. I look like a real golden eagle, fly like one." Cut back to the present, he's still talking to the members of the League as he's saying, "Even more startling, I quickly discovered I could transform back to my normal self at will. So I secretly spent hours each night as Golden Eagle, practicing with my new powers, training with weapons like my idol Hawkman used, until I was ready for action as a winged wonder. Although I've been crime fighting for a month now, I kept my appearance a secret till I gained more confidence and experience." Elongated Man stretches his neck at this point, saying, "Sounds like you had everything worked out." Flash concludes for him, "Except for not anticipating you'd be mistaken for Hawkman," which Green Arrow says,
"And that corny bit of leaving a feather behind with each crook capture didn't help your image any."
Charlie looks thoughtful here, but Batman looks even more thoughtful in the first panel of page 10 as he says,
"What puzzles me is how Matter Master made the same mistake."
To which Green Arrow says,
"As one of Featherface's oldest arch-enemies, you'd think he'd know better."
At this point, Elongated Man looks beyond the ball, stretches an index finger, points and says, "Fellas?"
Responding to the stretchable sleuth's questioning voice, the Leaguers turn to see...
Yeah, there's looks like a big long shaft surrounded by a green burst of energy floating in mid-air. Flash points and says, "The Mentachem rod, floating under its own power." Charlie says, "Mena what?"
Minichem. It's the magic wand that gives the Matter Master complete control over all mineral and vegetable matter.
How useful, Aquaman says.
Either it's working without him, or he's operating it by remote control.
And Green Arrow says,
whatever. It explains why Matter Master hasn't seen for himself that Hawkman is really an eagle.
The next panel, Charlie has brought his costume back, whichever means he does it. There's a flash of golden energy and he's suddenly back in his Golden Eagle uniform as he says, I couldn't ask for a better cue to turn eagle. I get the feeling the JLA is about to go into action.
Keep back, Eagle. We'll handle that Menachem rod threat,
says Batman. And Green Arrow says,
that Wonder Stick is too dangerous to be left hanging around.
All heroes start running at this point into action as Charlie leaps into the air saying, you can't shake me, Leaguers. Besides, you may need all the help you can get.
As the world's greatest heroes advance, again the Matter Master's chilling voice blares out.
Yes, we see the Matter Master's voice emanating. It seems to be coming from his rod, which is an interesting turn. And he's saying, warning, my Menachem rod is invincible, infinitely more powerful than it's ever been before. But I expect you'll insist on proving that for yourselves.
And the nightmarish proof begins with...
oh, wow, this is amazing. If you remember what Pete described for the cover, listeners, all of a sudden, our heroes have been transformed. Elongated Man's long, stretched neck now ends in the head of a snake. Aquaman has the head of a weird-looking fish. There's a distinct rodent-style appearance to Batman. Green Arrow is the stuff of nightmares. He looks like a human fly. And the Flash's head has been transformed into that of a deer with antlers and everything. Golden Eagle looks on, wide-eyed, and says, oh no! How could such a terrible thing happen to the Justice Leaguers? The Mentachem rod seems to talk once more as again we hear Matter Master's voice. The next item in the programme. My Mentachem handicaps the Fearless Five with the instincts of 5 timid animals. Next, it creates monstrous versions of 5 fierce animals. And we see, out of nowhere, a giant owl, a giant walrus, a cheetah, a giant spider, good grief, and a giant mongoose. This is terrifying when nature attacks. The Mentachem rod continues to channel its master's voice at the top of page 12 as we hear, animals that are natural predators who will instinctively attack their natural prey. The Justice League. And the rest of the page is taken up, sort of narrated by the Mentachem rod, as we see these various conflicts taking place. Rest assured, we'll try and put this page in the socials, won't we, Pete?
Absolutely.
A giant mongoose to attack its natural enemy, the snake. And we see Elongated Man legging it from the giant mongoose. What could be more natural than a killer walrus going after a fish? Or a super-fast cheetah chasing after a super-fast deer? And here we have a hungry monster owl snatching up a rodent for dinner. Ratman doesn't look too scared about that, to be honest.
No.
Disappointingly. And not to overlook, a giant spider about to devour a trapped insect. And we see Green Arrow with the head of an ant or whatever it is standing at the edge of the roof of a building with a giant spider looking like it's about to grab him and bite him. Oh my goodness, the caption at the top of page 13 reads,
unlike his usual daring self, the Elongated Man desperately flees, for a very good reason. The Mentachem rod has left him unlike his usual self.
Yes, we see snake-headed Elongated Man legging it away from the mongoose on the rooftop, and Ralph is thinking, gotta fight the overwhelming snake instinct in me that's forced me to flee. The mongoose pinned one of my legs. And we see that's indeed what's happened. It's terrifying. The next panel, Ralph has jumped off the roof of the building, his legs stretching behind, still in the mongoose's grasp, and he's thinking, my leg won't reach its stretch limit for miles yet. I've got to muster up enough willpower to stop running and fight back.
Within moments, there's a reverse of direction, and the ductile detective springs upward like a living slingshot.
This is tremendous. You see Ralph pinging back up, flying up towards the roof as he's thinking, my stretched leg starting to contract, which means being whisked back toward my trapped foot, fast enough to KO the mongoose with a flying kick. And indeed, you see with his left leg still in the creature's grasp, Ralph uses his right foot to kick the mongoose's head backwards. Phew, he continues to think, now that I'm free and clear, maybe I can lend some of my colleagues a helping hand, or foot.
Too late, Elongated Man. While you were busy stretching your legs, the handicapped Sea King found himself perilously out of his element.
Yes, we see in the final panel of page 13 that the giant killer walrus has got Aquaman in its flippers. Aquaman is waving a fist and thinking,
must stop reacting with the mindless panic of a fish. Summon up my courage.
Oh my goodness, that's the best thought bubble ever. Right, the first panel of page 14, it's almost like he's managed to wriggle free out of the way of the flipper as he slams onto the roof of the building thinking,
oh, If only we were in water, I might have a sporting chance to defend myself. There I could swim circles round old Tusk Teeth. That's an idea. I'll make like I'm swimming anyway. Start thrashing my legs, as if I were really underwater.
Yes, he says that as the killer walrus, the giant killer walrus, bears down on him. And then in panel 3, because he's been kicking his legs ferociously, he manages to kick the walrus, sending it falling backwards. And fish-headed Aquaman thinks,
like I hoped, if my legs are powerful enough to propel me through the water at hundreds of knots, they are powerful enough to do this. Wonder how Flash is doing on his own. Down the side of the building races a scared speedster with one of nature's most efficient killing machines hot on his heels.
This is astonishing. Listeners, please get hold of this story. Grab an omniboo or a trade or something, read it along with us. This is fantastic. Deer-headed Flash is sprinting down the side of the building, and the cheetah is running down the side of the building after him. Can cheetahs go so quickly in real life? IDK.
Super cheetahs can.
Yes, I suppose it must be. Of course, it is a super cheetah. As he tries to escape from the big cat, the Flash is thinking, that super cheetah closing in on me. He must be even faster than I am. Unless I stop fleeing like a deer and start counter-striking like a Justice Leaguer, I've got about 3 seconds to live. 3 seconds to live, of course. Shared the bill with Menswear at the Enemy Awards in 1996. Final panel on page 14 is fantastic. We are sort of looking up at the height of the building with the cheetah and deer-headed Flash racing towards us. Considering that he only has seconds to live, the Flash is thinking, that's plenty of time. If my plan works, the cheetah may be tops when it comes to sheer speed, but I'm counting on him not knowing anything about vibrating his molecules through solid concrete. And that's what we see the Flash doing in the first panel of page 15. He accelerates his molecules, vibrates into the ground, and with the cheetah racing after him, doesn't vibrate his molecules and knocks itself unconscious as it strikes the ground. From under the ground, we hear the Flash's thoughts. Pleasant dreams, cheetah. I hope there's still time to team up with Batman.
But you've run out of time, Flash, as a giant predator and his prey wing over Midway City.
Yes, we see Ratman, as I'm calling him, being borne along by the giant monster owl. Ratman is thinking,
if it weren't for the rodent instincts I've been straddled with, I'd have easily avoided this owl's talons in the ground. But now that our battleground has changed, I'm going to call the shots.
Caption reads,
adroitly manipulating his body in midair, the Cape Crusader grabs onto a skyscraper spire.
That was fantastic. Yeah, Bats manages to reach out, grab the spire, and the owl keeps going, tearing a segment of Batman's cape off in the process. Bats stands to right himself in the next panel as the owl sweeps back down towards him, thinking,
looks like the owl's circling back to get his grubby hooks on me again. Here's where I make him hooting mad.
In the first panel of 16, he grabs a hold of the spire and, like a pole, just sort of whirls around it. With a whoomph, he manages to kick at the owl, sending it flying backwards as Bats spins, he thinks.
Better hurry back and give the arrow an assist. His situation looked pretty grim. At that moment, the battling bowman finds his predicament a bit sticky, to say the least.
Oh my goodness, yes, the spider has basically webbed Green Arrow up so that he's stuck to the ground and against the wall at the top of this building. Spider is very close, this is hideous. And fly-headed Green Arrow is thinking,
these multiple fly eyes of mine, making me see scores of images of that spider coming for me. An insecticide arrow ought to take the bite out of him.
Oliver reaches behind, trying to get a hold of his quiver, thinking,
blast! My bow tangled up in the sticky webbing. No way to pull it loose in time. So, I gotta improvise and turn Spidey's own trap against him by using a strand of his elastic webbing as a bow.
Yes, he's managed to get hold of one arrow, which he draws tight and fires.
Zing goes my arrow, and zonk goes the spider.
Yes, as the arrow collides with the giant spider, unleashing a cloud of green, probably, hopefully, fatal to spiders, gas.
Shortly, as 5 bruised and battered Justice Leaguers reassemble...
Yep, Flash, Elongated Man, Aquaman, Green Arrow and Batman, with Flash saying, Elongated Man, Green Arrow, Aquaman, you've got your own faces back.
And so do you, Flash. Batman,
says Aquaman, with Batman concluding,
we couldn't have done any better even if we'd teamed up.
Yes, if they'd stopped and teamed up. The caption for the next panel reads,
a quick comparison of battle notes reveals...
Yes, a thoughtful Batman says,
apparently when each of us defeated Matter Master's manufactured predators, the predators vanish and our faces return to normal the next instant.
This prompts Green Arrow to rub the back of his head and say,
wait a minute, guys, hasn't anyone noticed we're missing a golden eagle?
Aquaman looks around.
Great starfish! I forgot all about him.
Flash looks around too and says, he's got to be around here somewhere.
I'm not so sure. With the Medicam rod also missing, it could add up to something ominous.
Says Batman, ominously. Caption for the next panel then reads,
ominous is indeed the word to describe what is happening at that moment in a deep subterranean cave outside Midway City.
Yes, We can see the cave, deep and dark and dank. We see the Mentachem rod hanging in the air, surrounded by a green aura, and there's another green and yellow aura beneath it as a shape starts to take form. And we hear a young voice saying, "What's happened to me?" And bursting out of this aura, we see the golden eagle. The Mentachem rod speaks once again. "You've been energized and teleported to my hideout via the Mentachem rod. It converted you from matter to energy, and back to matter again." Golden Eagle says, "I figured that disembodied voice had to be yours, Matter Master. Why won't you show yourself?" "Who says I haven't, Winged One? Turn around and see for yourself." Charlie, Golden Eagle, turns in the next panel, and we see Matter Master, as Peter described on the cover, all in green, yellow trunks, red cape, that little wizard's hat with the stars and planet shapes on it, but he seems to be trapped. Golly! Stretched out in a transparent coffin? Does that mean you're dead? Nothing so melodramatic. I'm simply resting in a state of deep sleep, which has made my mastery of matter more formidable than ever before. The power of my subconscious is far beyond the range of my waking mind, which means this sleeping state has enabled me to infuse the Mentachem rod with incredibly more mental energy, as your Justice League comrades have already found out. Now that I've disposed of them, all that remains is a final battle between me and you, Hawkman.
Next moment, the Mentachem rod turns itself toward the transparent coffin, and...
Yes, a burst of green energy flashes from the rod, striking the glass coffin as Golden Eagle looks on, saying, "Oh, there you go again, calling me Hawkman. When are you going to realise I'm not Hawkman? My name is Charlie Parker, and I live in an orphanage." In the next panel we see that the glass coffin has vanished, and a nice, very comfortable-looking sun-lounger has appeared. Matter Master sitting on it, rubbing his face as he wakes up, saying, "Spare me, Hawkman. What nonsense are you babbling? It's not like you to..." And he opens his eyes wide, brilliant close-up here from the decks, as he exclaims, "Great electrons! It's true! You're not Hawkman at all!" In the first panel of page 19, the Matter Master gestures with his wand, saying, "Observe, I've Mentachem the stalagmites, causing him to rise up and seize you." And we see the rock formations moving towards Golden Eagle. As Matter Master continues, "Unless you want to end up a human calcium deposit, start talking fast."
Hurriedly, Golden Eagle recounts for Matter Master the mysterious transformation that gave him his wings.
Yes, and we see that Charlie, aka Golden Eagle, is still trapped. It looks like the rock sort of swarmed up and wrapped itself around his legs and arms as he's in the process of saying, "And that's what happened. But honest, I don't know where the strange beam came from. All I know is it left me with Hawkman-type powers." Matter Master looks thoughtful here, contemplates his wand and says, "The way you described that beam, it could have come from my Mentachem rod. But how is that possible? Unless my subconscious mind took on more than I figured." See Golden Eagle struggling to free himself from the rock as Matter Master continues to monologue. "Evidently, during one of my early sleeps, my subconscious became aware of how distraught I was over Hawkman's sudden departure to Thanagar, leaving Earth before I could spring this master trap on him. Whereupon my subconscious took over and commanded the Mentachem rod to seek out the one person in Midway City who most resembled Hawkman, which turned out to be Charlie Parker play-acting in his bird costume. But a pseudo-Hawkman wouldn't do. So the Mentachem rod created real wings to replace the fake ones. I was so overly anxious to strike back at Hawkman, I became a victim of my own machination." He looks a very conspicuous rocky formation, which I can only assume is the subsumed Golden Eagle as he continues. "A costly mistake, but not nearly as costly as the price Golden Eagle is paying for messing up my plans." Yes, well, that's obviously what's happened. He's been completely subsumed in the rock. Thankfully, there's a caption for panel 2.
Suddenly, a lithe bat-caped figure swings down through the cavern.
Thank goodness for that. Swinging into a cave on a line is Batman, who swings in and kicks Matter Master, sending him flying backwards, saying,
"This is for you, Matter Master, for being such a poor sport,"
says Matter Master as he goes flying. Caption for panel 3.
While a blur of crimson surrounds the doom-sealing mound of rock.
Yeah, see the Flash circling the rock at great speed, lashing out with his left hand, and Flash says, "Keep cool, Eagle. A few more thousand super speed chops and I'll have you out of here." We see indeed after that the rock's starting to crack up and Golden Eagle standing revealed.
3 seconds and 3 more heroes later.
You see that Aquaman, Elongated Man and Green Arrow have arrived in the scene. Charlie is saying, and we should say it's Charlie, he's not Golden Eagle on this panel, "I'm sure glad you used the Mentachem rod to change me permanently back to normal. There's a lot more to being a Justice Leaguer than I thought."
"Don't put yourself down, Charlie. You wore Hawkman's wings admirably."
Nice words from Batman as Green Arrow then says,
"Your wits not only helped to snap Matter Master, you saved your life with that gizmo."
You see that Charlie's holding what looks like a little radio receiver in his right hand. He says in reply, "It only took common sense. I figured if the Mentachem rod transformed me into a Mentachem Justice League member, Somewhere in my costume it figured there had to be a JLA signal device. All I had to do was find it, and press it to alert you fellas where I was. Gosh, I sure wish the real Hawkman could have come along with you. And at that point, off-panel, a voice suddenly says,
Did someone mention my name?
and Charlie whirls to see a familiar, feathered figure standing, and he exclaims, Hawkman? And a caption reads,
Yes, the real Hawkman is back. But for the how and why of it, don't miss next issues. I have wings and I must fly.
and a small caption reads,
The end.
Oh, mama.
What do you think of that one then?
I loved it. That was great fun. It rattled along at a great pace, and superheroes get turned into animals and fought other animals. That was joyous. That was a great bit of Silver Age fun. It felt sort of contrasted with the beautiful Dick Dillon, Dick Giordano Bronze Age artwork. That was tremendous.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that we could have a Chuck on board to do Green Arrow, because it would save both of our voices an awful lot. But we can't complain about that too much.
No, definitely not.
What did you think?
Yeah, again, really enjoyed it. I like the introduction of Golden Eagle. Unfortunately, as they say at the end, he's turned back to normal permanently.
Well, we know that's not really true, because what we should say is that he pops up in the Teen Titans before too long, listeners.
Mm-hmm.
I'll stick some covers of that on the socials over the next week. And of course, he reappears during what I always think of as the Jeff Johns Hawkman series in the early 2000s. He rocks up there, and there's a few covers from those that I'll stick up as well. So he kind of, as my grandpa Ben used to say, he goes away but he comes back.
He does indeed. He's one of the main players of Titans West.
Yeah, because he pops up irregularly during the 80s. I'm sure I've got a Teen Titans annual line somewhere in this pile of intended content somewhere to get photographed. So was it Hawk and Dove? A Hawk and Dove annual or something like that?
He's in Hawk and Dove as well, I'm
yeah,
sure.
It's something like that I'm thinking of. It's an interesting twist on the legacy aspect, isn't it?
Indeed, and of course Charlie Parker, named after Charlie Bird Parker, the jazz musician.
Is that been confirmed?
But I mean, it's got to be.
I think I agree with you. I'm not doubting for a second. I think it has to be deliberate on behalf of Mr. Bates, I think.
Might be mentioned in the letters page, we don't know, we haven't got there yet.
This is true.
We're keeping it surprise for ourselves
I see
this
what
week.
you've done there, listeners. I see what you've done there, Peter. Do you see what Peter's done there? Anyway, yes. I don't have too much to say on it, just because it's as I say, interesting spin on the legacy aspect of someone almost becoming Hawkman by a baddie not paying attention and wish fulfillment.
Yeah, created by a baddie.
Yeah,
which is hilarious.
And he does count as a legacy hero because he's created Hawkman's image and he does hang around for a while and has it and comes back. So and we don't really get to do too many Hawkman flavoured stories on the show.
Very true.
So I'm glad in this case that we have been able to.
His long hair underneath the Hawkman mask is very reminiscent of the 90s Hawkman, when he had long hair.
Of course, the merged version that came out of Zero. I mean, I sort of noticed while we were recording, there's one panel in particular where he sort of confronts, it's the final panel on page 17, where the sort of wings on the side of his helmet sort of blend into his hair beautifully. You can imagine an incredibly good-looking young actor man playing him on television or in a film and looking spectacular.
There's currently a McFarlane Zero Hour Hawkman figure out, and basically if you tilted the helmet back in that, it would be a pretty good Charlie Parker figure. Repainting the wings.
Yeah, I remember actively, do you remember the Total Justice action figure line?
Oh yeah.
Turn of the century. I've got a couple of those figures. The Hawkman one was one I could never find.
Right.
That was the one I kind of wanted the most because it was based on that Zero Hour sort of design. Is that one would that figure be for sale in any reputable comic shops nearby?
The Zero Hour one, yes.
Really?
It is available currently in Forbidden Planet Glasgow.
There we go. We could be doing so many more of these plugs, but you should mind us because we don't. Right, cool. How much is it?
20 quid.
Right, I'm maybe going to have a look. Interesting. Yeah, because I always wanted that. I always liked that costume design with the darker trousers and the dark hair. He was as grunge as Hawkman ever got, I suppose. No, you're right. There is definitely a similarity between them. That's interesting. I wonder if that was ever if the Golden Eagle design was ever an influence on that version of Hawkman. Probably not.
He's a bit blasé with the secret identity. The fact that first of all the helmet is like tilted back, and he does tell everyone he's Charlie Parker. It's like his opening gambit with everyone, including Matter Master.
But he's telling the heroes because presumably he knows he can trust them. That's fair, but you're right. It's very dangerous to tell the baddie straight away. But obviously he's trying to wrong foot the baddie because the baddie thinks he's got Hawkman. I like how the explanation for his origin is just sort of revealed by Matter Master monologuing to himself.
Yes.
That's fun.
Any supervillain monologue. Aces.
Yeah, it's good, but I mean, it would have been good if maybe Batman or Elongated Man had worked it out or something, but I suppose it's only a 20-page story, so if maybe we had 2 more pages, they might be able to do that, but very economical. I felt, we absolutely rattled through that. I really liked the pacing.
Yeah. I loved the opening with Green Arrow going through the JLA mail. In stories of old, they'd have had, and here's a letter from Irene Vartanoff.
Yes.
And actually name-check some of the letter
Yeah,
writers.
that would have been cool.
But no, obviously they just did it more succinctly here and didn't do any of that. But
yeah,
that would have been fun.
I liked that a lot. I liked Ollie grumping about having to do some work. And I mean, if it had been at all practical, we would have got Chuck to do all these lines and it would have been glorious. I think this is one story where your Adam West Batman voice might have been suited to what was going on.
To the campiness of turning into a rat.
Yeah, but the fact you're doing it in the Kevin Conroy voice that you and Steve recently sort of adapted made it a little bit more surreal and a bit funnier. I think actually, especially, when the owl was carrying him along and he was thinking to himself, gritty Batman voice just made that even more ridiculous.
Steve's more bang on Kevin Conroy than I am. I'm very much just gruff Batman.
Yeah.
But
again, if it had been super practical, we would have got Max to do Ralph and we would have got Steve to do Batman, but we're obviously, as we probably hinted, listeners, we're probably up to the Seven Soldiers epic from Adventure Comics, and we don't want to give Peter any more editing than he actually needs. And some of those people might already be contributing anyway as it goes.
Indeed.
I think it's an interesting mix of members because Aquaman getting to turn up is cool because again he's someone else that we haven't really seen that often on the show.
Yeah, and there's no actual water involved, really, apart from the water ball that he traps.
I liked Aquaman's dialogue as he fought with the killer walrus was absolutely hilarious. That was very funny. I liked Ralph's sort of, it made sense for Ralph to sort of be converted into a snake because of the whole stretchiness. I love the fact that the Flash dealt with his cheetah so quickly, but I want to really highlight Aquaman's line. I almost died when you were reading it out. Must stop reacting with the mindless panic of a fish. Superb, because that's what everyone mainly thinks of when fishes their tendency towards mindless panic.
Yes.
Beyond that, it was just great fun. It's an interesting mix in Legacy. It's a fun villain that I don't think I'd ever encountered before, and it's a nice mix of heroes. I mean, I can imagine if some of the other heroes had tier, maybe Green Lantern or Black Canary, some of their different power specs might have meant things turned out a little differently. But it was good. It was a good mix of characters, and I love the cover. I'm pleased that I've got a couple of foreign reprints of this one that present it a little more larger, a little more focused rather than boxed away. And we should also quickly mention issue 117, the following issue, deals with Hawkman coming back to the League. Charlie is in it for a couple of panels, just sort of, they leave him on guard duty on the satellite, which is hilarious. And it's a really, really quite exciting sort of outer space sort of epic adventure. Green Lantern's involved quite a bit. There's a nice bit when the heroes all use their combined willpower to operate Green Lantern's ring and stuff. And it's very talky. So if you have a copy of JLA 117 and you want to see how Hawkman comes back to the League properly, you can read that. We were vaguely thinking earlier on about doing a sort of combined version of 116 and 117, but when we realised how minimal Charlie's involvement was in 117, we decided not to bother. But we'd certainly encourage you to read it, see what happened next.
And that's got that really cool cover of him behind the curtain.
Yes.
Yeah, which is cool.
And it's such a cool cover that I'm probably just going to post the foreign versions of that I've found as well, because why not?
He's kind of got the silhouette of Yellow Jacket, the Marvel
Yeah,
hero.
I'm sure Ross Pearsall has used that on one of his Super Team Family blog posts.
Oh, of course.
That, exactly what you said, substituting Yellow Jacket for Hawkman. I'm sure he has. If he hasn't, it's probably a good one that you could do if you felt like it. Yeah, 117, great cover, very exciting. It's got Canary on it as well. It's a really interesting team the League has at the moment at this point. Hopefully with Hawkman coming back, maybe he'll pop up again on the show soon. You never know.
Before we move on to the letters, shall we have a wee stab at this quiz?
Yeah, go on.
Hawkman rates the quiz, saying, "In this issue, the JLA battles one of my cleverest foes, the Matter Master. There have been many clashes between the Justice League and the enemies of individual members. Herewith are several villains matched against the wrong heroes. Can you straighten them out in this JLA supervillain quiz?" Right, so I'm going to tell you the pair-ups and you tell me who the villain should actually be fighting.
Right.
Okay. Superman versus the Angle Man.
Can we come back to that one?
Yep. Batman versus Captain Cold.
Captain Cold should be against Flash, obviously.
Yes. That brings on to Flash. Flash against the Shadow Thief.
Shadow Thief should be against Hawkman.
Mm-hmm. The Atom versus the Joker.
Joker should be fighting Batman.
Wonder Woman versus Kronos.
Kronos should be fighting the Atom, so should Wonder Woman be fighting the Angle Man?
Oh,
yes, because there's Angle Man is going to pop up in the show. Yes, that's right. Aha, right.
Green Lantern versus Luthor.
Well, Luthor should be fighting Superman.
Yep. Hawkman versus Clock King.
Clock King, should he be fighting Batman? No, he should be fighting Green Arrow?
Yes.
Right, process of elimination, because the last one is...
Green Arrow versus Tattooed Man.
And the Tattooed Man should be fighting Green Lantern.
Yeah, Clock King was traditionally a Green Arrow villain, but seems to be retconned in as a Batman villain since the animated series.
Right, okay. I only really know him from Just League Antarctica and such things.
Yes.
That's where I think I know him from mainly. Well, that was fun.
And of course, there's a Clock King figure coming out from McFarlane very soon.
That's right, yes. Which I'll probably buy because he rocks up in at least 2 panels of Crisis on Infinite Earths. So there you go. I think you see him running about the same time you see Eclipso getting zapped by someone or Eclipso zapping someone. He's on that page at least. Right, so should we move to contemporary correspondence then?
Let's do so.
And so we're reading letters from issue 120, the JLA mail room. First letter, from an old pal, reads, Dear Editor, I was a little apprehensive to hear that Carrie Bates was taking over the JLA writing chores with 116, at least temporarily. Carrie likes to take cute and impossible situations and make them seem plausible. Fortunately, he restrained himself admirably in The Kid Who Won Hawkman's Wings. He laid the groundwork for solid adventure and then allowed the various personalities of the JLAers to take over. It resulted in a pleasant cross between the very early Justice League cases and their latter-day Denny O'Neil classics. The solo use of Green Arrow for the first 7 pages may have been unfair, but it got the story off to a more plausible start. Not every case can occur just when all the members are on hand. The Matter Master is an excellent villain and should have been battling the JLA long ago. I've always felt he was too tough a foe for any one crime fighter to handle. His Matter Magic pranks, although played slightly for humour, were excellent touches. Art was excellent as always, but I'm annoyed that Dick Dillon insists on always drawing elongated man with something elongated, usually his head. EM should stand like a normal man, except when he's using his stretch powers for an obvious reason, and that's from regular letter contributor Scott Gibson, Evergreen, Colorado. Editorial response.
Ralph Dibney has always been a show-off, Scott, and he wants to be sure he stands out from all his costume cohorts. You've got to admit, you can always spot EM in a crowd.
I have to say I disagree with Scott on that.
Yeah, I entirely disagree with Scott. I'm with the editor here, yep.
Sorry, Scott. I thought it was quite interesting having Green Arrow it was an interest, given, as Green Arrow mentions himself, his relationship with Hawkman. That was an interesting little...
Yeah, absolutely. Second letter says, Dear Editor, I must congratulate, or should I say thank you, for the use of the name Charlie Parker as identity of the Golden Eagle. When it was spelled Charlie, Charlie Parker, it was the name of one of the greatest jazz saxophonists of all time and co-creator of the jazz form called bop. If the name was coincidental, I'd be very surprised, especially considering that Parker's nickname was Bird. And that's from Thomas A. Stern from Los Angeles, California.
Interesting editorial response. Chalk up the name-dropping to jazz-minded Julie Schwartz, who was pleasantly surprised when not 1 but 2 readers, the other being Ray Engelberg of the Bronx, New York, caught his in-joke. Editorial response had been signed BR, which we presume is Bob Rozakis at this point.
The answer man himself.
Yep, the next letter. Dear Editor, The Kid Who Won Hawkman's Wings was the worst JLA story I've read in a long time. Gasp. It was pure nonsense. Of course it was. Is this chap Scottish? On page 4, a 16-year-old kid with hardly any crime-fighting ability bags a couple of crooks. What I can't understand is why, in the time it took Golden Eagle to drop his net, cover the crooks and wrap them up, one of them didn't shoot him down and end the story right there, doing us all a big favour. Gasp. This is the first time I have ever heard of the Matter Master, but if he has complete control over vegetable and mineral material, why couldn't he have changed the Justice Leaguers into daisies and sent a lawnmower after them? If you're going to make baddies, at least make them out to be at the JLA, not just toy with them. And that very depressing, actually, letter from Charles McLean, Farmington, Michigan, gets replied by the editors saying,
The Matter Master promises to devise deadlier traps next time. As a demonstration, he has turned Reader McLean into a tube of toothpaste and sent an electric toothbrush after him.
Yeah, that would have been very Spectre-ish, wouldn't it, to turn them into daisies and send a lawnmower after them or something?
Yeah, and also the thing about Matter Master is he doesn't think that way. He thinks in the way of, let's pit this against this. It's the supervillain hubris.
Of course.
So, yeah, missing the point there. And also, the idea is his rod created a version of Hawkman, and Hawkman obviously is going to be able to stop villains.
Sure.
And can you imagine being drawn through the air, huddled up with 2 other people in a net,
yes,
and you've got your gun somewhere, and you're trying to shoot the guy who's taking you there. And also, why would you shoot the person who's flying you somewhere? Because you just follow this guy and die. I'm sorry, Charles, you have not thought this through.
Charles, we hope you're listening so that you get that rebuff of your thoughts.
The next letter, let's hope this is better. Dear JLA gang, Carrie Bates, bless you. No wonder you're one of my favourite writers. I like this person straight away. The opening tableau of Green Arrow was beautiful. And the Charlie Parker character, talk about your childhood dreams come true. Man, if only I had a penny for every time I wished for a superpower when I was younger. And then, to top it all, sensational art by my favourite team of artists, Dick Dillon and Dick Giordano. The Kid Who Won Hawkman's Wings is destined to be one of my favourite stories, one to be reread and re-enjoyed for years to come. So says Deborah A. McClellan from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Excellent. response to Deborah's letter. Needless to say, Debbie's been transformed into Electric Toothbrush Girl and has been sent to Michigan to take care of Charlie McLean.
Well played, Bob Rozakis.
Yes, very much so. And the final letter from someone who is on a few people's sort of radar at the moment because it's the 30th anniversary of Zero Hour and he's one of the main creators to that. Dear editor, I have a compliment. It's about that dude who writes the letter columns for Julie Schwartz. That bit about we can't print your letter if you don't write it is great. It's about time someone said that. So many letters say, gee, I wish I could get a letter printed. The fact is, they've never even written. I used to say the same thing, and that is from the legendary Dan Jurgens, Ortonville, Minnesota.
Wow.
Is that the second letter we've had from Dan?
I think so, yeah. Huh?
We've had one at least from him before, so that's very exciting. Well, that's what Dan Jurgens, Scott Gibson, and everyone else thought of GLA 116.
But what did you think? You can write to us at the F2podcast@gmail.com. Make sure you follow us on social media because we're putting together lots of lovely bonus material for this and indeed every episode. David works very hard to do that, to keep you interested, to keep your social media feeds full.
I do my damnedest, listeners. God bless you.
So on Facebook and Instagram, we're at the Earth2 Podcast, and at Twitter, we're at podcast_Earth2, and it's the number 2 for all our socials.
It really is. Listeners, if you're feeling generous, you can go to wherever it is you receive your podcasts and leave us a nice review. Michael Rosenbaum says that's good for your optics, and he wouldn't lie about anything. If you're feeling even more generous, you could keep Caffè Nero in Sauchiehall Hall Street in business by sending Peter the price of a beverage on our coffee page. Peter would be very grateful. Yeah, that's about that. What we do next week, I can't remember. I'll have to go and look. And maybe you'll join us next week to find out.
Indeed. On that bombshell, I've been Peter.
And I've been David. Take care. We'll see you soon on
the Earth2
Podcast.
Transmatter cube activated. Return coordinates set for Earth Prime.
What could be more natural than a killer wall?
What could be more natural? What could possibly be more natural?
Maybe a cheetah chasing a deer. I don't know. It's the phrase "killer walrus." Sorry,
Killer walrus.
Yes,
of course.
Say it. Pick one off the poster.
No.
Right.
It's fine.
Anyway.